So when you add value without the expectation of gimme, 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 just universally in business, I think that's a better approach than what can I get from this person?
Hello and welcome to the Wholesale Made Easy podcast, where we believe selling on Amazon shouldn't be hard, and we're going to prove it. My name is Dylan Carter, and I'm one of the co-founders at Vendrive, a tool that helps Amazon wholesale sellers streamline their businesses, stay organized, and land more profitable accounts. I'm sitting down with other successful wholesale sellers, and together we're sharing lessons learned and what it really takes to succeed with wholesale. Today's guest is Barbara Drazga. Barbara is an active Amazon seller navigating the ever-changing rules of selling on Amazon. She considers herself a practitioner, rethinking the model from the ground up. She focuses heavily on being customer-centric. Through wholesale, private label, and bundling, she's able to find unique products that solve a problem. Today, we talk about bundling exclusively and how that could very well be your next competitive advantage. Yeah, so walk me through how you approach bundling, because you have some in-depth knowledge on how you approach this, and you've done it enough times where you really have your finger on the pulse of how to do this correctly. And even just having one-on-one conversations with you about this, it's interesting and very effective in the way that you approach it. I find that it's similar to how we approach wholesale reverse sourcing, where it's very methodical, right? It's not just throwing things against the wall, it's really thinking it through. So can you walk me, at least from a high level, of how you approach finding bundle ideas and bundling as a whole?
Yeah, absolutely. First, let me tell you the biggest mistake that people make when they decide, I'm going to put together bundles. They start with the product, and they go to a dollar store, or they go to a retail store, and they buy a bunch of stuff and put it in a poly bag, and they're focused on the product. And that is the biggest mistake. And I know it's a little bit of a mindset shift, but I believe on focusing, identifying your target market first, and then the product comes after. The better that you understand, and I call them fanatical niche markets, which is a group of people with a shared passion or a shared problem. If you guys are taking notes, go ahead and write this down. You're looking for a group of people with a shared passion or a shared problem that needs to be solved. And after you really understand what those passions and problems are and why they're important to that group, then you can go out and start looking for wholesale products that you can put a bundle that will feed that passion or solve the problem that they have. But if you don't understand the passion and the problem, you're throwing money up against the wall and hoping it works. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes complete sense. It's in lieu of how we approach sourcing wholesale in general, which can seem very counterintuitive, like, wait, you're sourcing from Amazon, not the other way around. But when you think about it logically, it makes the most sense, right? You're starting with a problem instead of trying to, and this is the whole like entrepreneur journey, right? Like, you don't start with a solution, you start with a pain point, a problem. You find people that have that shared commonality, and then you find solutions that fit within that.
Yeah, and a lot of folks, they get started on Amazon, and they watch some free videos, and they kind of jump in the same entry point. Go scan stuff at a store. It's very product-based, product-focused. Go scan stuff and send it to Amazon, and hopefully it will sell. My approach is, and by the way, I started that way, like a lot of people did. I started with retail arbitrage, and then I graduated pretty quickly to wholesale and bundles. So I am probably 85% at this point wholesale and bundles, and then leveraging the data that I've gathered from doing wholesale and bundles into creating my own private label products now. And that's a little bit longer of a trajectory of growth. So I'm working on that, but I've put together a base of wholesale products and bundles that sell consistently so that I can go explore other opportunities. Does that make sense? So one of the things that, another mistake that people make with bundles is they only focus on seasonal. So that means you create bundles for Valentine's Day and Easter and Christmas and Halloween. Those are the big ones, and Mother's Day. And you kind of ignore the rest of the year. So what happens? One, you get a pop of sales, but then, after Valentine's Day, you're like, oh, crud, I've got no product, right? But then the other thing that happens is, what if that stuff doesn't sell? Now you got to pull it back, and hopefully it's not consumable. Hopefully it doesn't have an expiration date. You got to hold on to it. Your money's tied up in that product until next Valentine's Day, or you're going to pull the bundles apart and try to make them into something else. So the mistake is that people look at seasonal bundles first, and my perspective is to grow evergreen bundles. So you have bundles that sell year round, and then you can add seasonal to kind of have that pop of income. But creating a base of consistent income is super important, as you know, in any business, especially an Amazon business.
Yeah, I find people focus too heavily on seasonal things because they look great when they're in season. But you never think, a month, 2 months down the road when it's null, right? It's a moot point because there is no sales volume. And like you said, you can end up being stuck with hopefully non-consumable products, but you can either liquidate them so you're going to lose money, or hold them, which is, I would say, just as bad, because now you're not getting any ROI on that product for such a long period of time. You can't reinvest that money into, more profitable inventory. And it's supplemental, in my opinion. Regardless if it's bundles or whatever, anything that has a huge pop and then a decline and that happens once a year is purely supplemental. And I find it really hard to build a sustainable, growing business from supplemental products. You really have to have the evergreen products. And that's what I look for even when I'm sourcing for wholesale products, right? I'm looking for products that I can carry and do well throughout the year for multiple years. Because me adding a product that's going to do well for 1 month, how does that help my business in 3 months?
I agree. And I'm not quite sure if you focus on niches or what your approach to wholesale is. There are a lot of different approaches. My approach is non-sexy, right? I like products that people need, as opposed to like the general widget of the day. What's the widget of the month, right? I like to solve problems. So I'll go after niches that are very non-sexy and have less competition in than the, toys or skincare niches, hugely competitive. Even, putting together bundles for that, hugely competitive. But if you go after non-sexy markets, for example, office supplies, people need them. They use them. They're consumable. They'll reorder them. Things like air filters. Not kidding, right? So vacuum air filters. Think about it. When you vacuum the house, you're going to change out that air filter once a month, especially if you have pets. You got fur everywhere, kids, right? So that's something you're going to buy over and over. It's not sexy, but it's something that people need. So when you but a lot of people, when they start on Amazon, they want to go after the widgets of the world and, Revlon and Nike and the big brands. I encourage you to kind of, don't follow the crowd. Don't be a lemming. Don't do what everybody else is doing, right? Kind of focus on an approach that serves people, that serves a market, that solves a problem, feeds a passion, and then bring product to that.
I feel like the new tagline for Amazon sellers should be profitable, not sexy. Because we see this all the time on our Facebook group with new sellers where they come in and they're like, yeah, but this is a really cool product. I'm like, right. But if you look at the variables of that product, the Keepa chart, all the things that matter, it's a dud. Or they'll come to me and say, hey, Dylan, this product looks really good. It's just not a cool, fun product. I'm like, so? I'm very agnostic to the product in lieu of the equation, because I care more about how many competitors are on it, how many units can I move per month, the pricing, the cost, right? The numbers are what really matters. And you see this across the board with even, business as a whole, where if you look at some of the cash flow heavy businesses in the world, some of the unsexy ones like storage facilities do very well. That's why the margins or the multiples on them are so high. You look at laundry mats, like these are unsexy businesses that do very, very well. And right. And there's so little competition because people are like, no, I want to own, the next gym franchise or whatever's hot. Like you said, what's trending, but you're essentially, in my opinion, you end up overpaying for a trend. And again, is that going to help you in a year from now? Probably not.
Well, and the definition of trend, implied is that it's going to end, right? But think about what you just mentioned is the storage units, the laundromats, the car washes. They solve a problem. They serve a purpose. They fill a need that people had. Just like we said, don't never fall in love with your product. You said it a couple of times. You've got people who say, oh, this is a really cool product. It's all about the numbers in business. So that's a product focused approach to business. And I, again, believe in, I call it the customer-centric approach to wholesale, to bundling, to growing a business. Get to know your customer intimately, the target market intimately, and then bring a product to that market. I know it's a little bit counterintuitive from what we, a lot of courses and whatever that are out there teach, is like start with the product. If you don't understand your market, you don't understand your competition in that market, then, and you don't know how to do keyword research and really research what's going on, then your chances of failing, if you're just product centric, are pretty high, I think.
And that's something I've been a fan of for a long period of time. And I've never wanted to niche down. I never saw the value into it. But as we're having this conversation and what we're about to go into, I think that's going to change my mind and my perspective on it, because I'm starting, even though we haven't fully dove into it yet, we talked a little bit before we started recording, and there's added value not only to the customer, but to your supplier. And wherever you can add value to a supplier, your approval rates are going to go up and you will have a more profitable business. And at the end of the day, sometimes you got to say, Dylan, you were wrong, and that's okay.
Well, I don't believe in trying to make anybody wrong. There are so many different approaches to selling online. I'm just sharing with you guys what my approach has been. And I've tried approaches that weren't as successful, like retail arbitrage practically made me, bonkers. I was exhausted all the time running around, and it wasn't sustainable. But a lot of people do well with retail arbitrage, right? So I'm not knocking any particular model. I'm showing you guys, this is what's worked for me over the past 3 years, 3.5 years I've been selling on Amazon. I've tested it. I've failed, I've succeeded, I've tweaked, and then I've made it better. And I'm just sharing, my perspective and background. I'm glad that you mentioned brand owners. Can I go there? Because that was a really interesting segment.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's one thing I wanted to talk about. In the Facebook groups, I see a lot, and I know you do too. Brand owners, I keep getting shot down. I call up suppliers and they say, we don't sell to Amazon sellers. Well, I'm here to tell you, bundling has been the solution to the comeback to that statement. So let me do a little role play for you. When a brand owner says, hey, thank you, Mr. Seller, for contacting us, we don't sell to Amazon sellers. I say, you know what? I'm not actually, a regular Amazon seller. Here's my approach to Amazon. I create product bundles in the niche that your company has products in order to provide a higher valued experience to an Amazon customer. So I don't buy product from you to compete on your listing. I don't hop on the listings that you've got a bunch of other sellers on. We create our own listings with bundles using your products that put your brand in an even better light, because we create bundles based on a customer-centric approach. So you can use bundling as a value proposition to increase the chance of a brand owner saying, yes, we would love to sell to you.
That makes a lot of sense. Are you approaching them already with a bundle in mind, or does that come after the fact? Have you already kind of done that research and said, you know what, here's 3 to 5 ideas for a bundle that would make sense for this niche, for this product, for this customer? And then when you're having that conversation saying, hey, here's some of the products we're actually considering based off of research that would work really well for a bundle for your customers. Are you doing that beforehand, or does that come after?
So we don't do that right out of the gate. I know you love systems and processes, and that's one of the things I love about you guys in Vendrive.
Oh, yes.
So we actually have a system, because I am a wholesale as well as bundles. So we've got automation set up with, the Vendrive system does a great job at this, where we have a series of communications that happen first. Basically, we're qualifying suppliers, right? And then as it gets further down the line of communication, we'll set up a video call with them and say, hey, look, here's some research we've done on the industry that you are in, not necessarily on your Amazon products, but the industry, the niche that you serve. I'll use just an example. One of the niches that I serve is gun owners. So we've got products that help people clean their guns or protect their guns, or for gun owners, but it helps them, manage their gun collection, et cetera. So I can say, hey, look, this is what I know about your target market. And here's what I'll also do competitor research. Here's what your competitors are doing to reach that market. Here's what you're doing. And by the way, here are a couple of ideas that we can help you put together to serve that market better using your products. And then we'll introduce some bundle ideas. We won't build it, we won't physically build it out, but we'll give them ideas for building it. in order to secure the account and then implement.
I like that approach because the term that kept coming up in my mind when you were saying this was consulting. Because if you're just having that conversation outside of the context of selling on Amazon, that's consulting. But the cool thing is they're not paying you for that. You're saying, hey, here's all the consulting I'm going to do for you. But by the way, I'm also going to give you as much money as I can in terms of purchase orders, and I'm going to do the work, right? So it's not just here's a dump of everything.
That's about adding value up front. So when you approach any business with the perspective is, what can I get from them? What can I get from them? What can I get from them? I don't think that's as successful as how can I serve them? How can I serve them? How can I be of value to that company? And it could be on that day, and this is actually, this happened to me about 2 years ago. I kept calling a company saying, or emailing them saying, I really want to carry your product. Here's the niche we're in. No, 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 no. For whatever reason, it was no, no, no. And it cycled back around several months later, and the sales, it turned out that it was a family-owned company, and that somebody had passed away, and the sales manager job didn't have anybody in it. So they were just turning people away left and right because they couldn't internally process any new customer. They couldn't have that conversation. But because I was consistent and added value and said, here's, hey, have you guys checked out your listing? Here's some things you can fix that might, sell a little bit better. Here, go take better photos. I would just occasionally reach out and give them some tips. I was their first call when they cycled back around out of that internal emergency. They said, hey, look, you've consistently contacted us. You're on our call list. We now have someone who can have a conversation with you. And they ended up being a supplier for me. So when you add value without the expectation of gimme, 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 just universally in business, I think that's a better approach than what can I get from this person?
It's a very karma approach, and I love it because we're such proponents of this where you should not have expectations of getting an account. I don't believe you should because you can't control that. And to your point, it might be 3 months down the road. And yes, you might have to follow up 6, 7, 8, 9, 12 times, but that's the difference between getting an account and not getting it at some point. And it's viewing your business, and I say this all the time, of not being a quote unquote Amazon seller, but being a business owner is your decisions change.
We love to talk
what
to you
you
about
do
how we
changes
can help you add value
when
to
you're
that
viewing your
product,
business
by
from 10
doing
years down the
bundling
road,
and
not
place an
next
initial
month.
order.
When you're thinking
So
of
you can
only
help pay
next
for that
month's
container
sales,
before it even hits
you're not going to do the
USA.
things that are long term that are really going to compound your growth. But when you're thinking 10 years down the road, yeah, I'm going to follow up for 3 months. It's 3 months out of 10 years, right? It shifts your perspective a lot. So how do you approach, because I know this is going to come up because we get asked all the time, what niche, what category should I go? Like anything you get into in life.
Reverse engineer your actions. What do I need to do right now today in order to grow into that strategic plan? And then the second thing I wanted to address was not all follow-up is created equal. So if you folks are just sending out the same generic email that everybody else is sending, and you're not talking to the people, you're just sending, some boilerplate email, that is not the same follow-up as making a connection with them, doing a little research on that brand owner's company and saying, hey, look, I noticed you have a new product that's coming out. I saw it on your website is coming soon. We'd love to talk to you about how we can help you add value to that product by doing bundling and place an initial order so you can help pay for that container before it even hits, the USA. Let's have a conversation about that. Let's get on the phone. So that kind of follow-up, as opposed to, I want to sell your stuff, is a whole lot more productive, I think. Sorry.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, that's why we built the CRM, Vendrive in the first place, was we wanted to be able to do this much easier than, throwing everything into a spreadsheet and trying to remember all this stuff, because the volume of suppliers you're talking with can be super high. And so it's hard to do all this in your head, right? So that's why we really built out the note kind of section where you can put in this stuff. Hey, they're going to be launching a new product in a month. Make sure you send this email or give them a call. I like the fact that you actually set up a video call with them, because again, it's a person you're talking with, whether it's a rep, the business owner, whatever. The more you can connect with them on a personal level, the better chances you have of getting that account. It's almost like being selfless gives you the selfish outcomes that you want, if you will, if you want to put it into that context. But it always goes back to providing more value than you expect to get back, in that 9 times out of 10 works in your favor. I mean, I like, it's hard to argue against the whole karma approach of provide value, and eventually it will come back to you.
I like that karma approach. I'm making a note of that karma approach. I kind of like that. So to get back to your question, how do you find niches? So some of the things I hear people say that kind of that stump them are they say about themselves, I'm not very creative. So right out of the gate, if you're thinking that in your head and you don't want to share that with everybody and admit to it, but it's what you're thinking. I know some of you are. Here's what I say to that. Everybody, we were all born creative beings, right? So if you have access to any children in your life and you want to find out things that people are passionate about and it's cool, just have a conversation with the kid. Watch what they play with. Listen to the conversations they have with people like, mommy, why is the sky blue? Okay, so what's the niche market between? Okay, so recently we had this blood moon, right? This wolf blood moon. It was really cool. It's like it's three events at once, and there was this eclipse. What questions do you think a child would ask about that? What would they be curious about? Well, what is that? Okay, so what is the niche for people who are interested in astronomy, for example? So kids who are interested in astronomy, and now I'm just winging it here off the top of my head. So you do a bundle for kids in a certain age group that teaches them about astronomy, the blood moon, the wolf moon, the different eclipses, the times of year that these things happen, how it affects the ocean tides, and you could create an educational bundle for kids between 3 and 6 years old that teaches them about this, that includes glow-in-the-dark stickers that go on the ceiling and a cute little night light that rotates that has little stars and moons. That was off the top of my head, right? So now the experience that you've created for the person who buys that bundle is, by the way, your target market is mom, dad, and grandma, and aunt, who are going to buy that for their little niece or nephew or kid who is just enamored because they just witnessed this solar eclipse and blood moon. Like, wow, mom, what is that? Now you get to buy this experience for this child that supports something that they have been asking about. That was just off the cuff there.
Yeah, no, I like it. It makes a lot of sense though, because again, you're starting from a potential problem and then working backwards from it, right? Like you were saying, you're really re-engineering this whole thing. And I love the word re-engineering, one, because I'm a super dork, two, because it just applies to everything, right? It's like if you get, okay, you want to get straight A's. Okay, how do you re-engineer that, right? Like it's a real question you can apply to a lot of things, including selling on Amazon and bundling. So I like the fact that you're approaching bundles from that customer-centric perspective, but also from a niche perspective, because, and we talked about this a little bit before we started recording, is you're basically becoming somewhat of an expert in the niche, right? So you're building out not just listing or like not just bundle listings for that category. You're doing a bit more. Can you dive into that? Today's episode is brought to you by GoAura.com, our AI-based repricing tool. If you're ready to take your sales to the next level, repricing is the way to go. No more manually adjusting your prices each day. Let our AI actually do the heavy lifting for you. And if you're sick of repricing tools dropping their activity and leaving you in the dark, Aura can help. With smart repricing strategies, an optimized platform, and instant repricing, Aura both reprices faster and holds the buy box for 65% more time than competing repricers. If you're ready to experience repricing reimagined, head over to GoAura.com to start your 14-day free trial.
Yeah, well, let me give you a couple of tips, a couple more tips on finding niches, and then I'll tell you how I build out related products in those niches. So folks, write this down. Go to a bookstore and start looking in the magazine section and the hobbies section at the different topics. And then go into the magazine section, open up the magazines and look at the advertisers in those magazines. What products are they advertising? What are the topics of the articles? Because think about it, you can get to leverage all the research that these journalists do because they need to produce articles that are going to sell those magazines, right? So they've done all of the research for you, and they list experts in there and websites to go to find out more about a specific niche topic that that article covers, right? So these niche magazines are a great way for you to just, grab a coffee, grab an espresso, sit in a bookstore in front of the magazines and pull out the nichiest ones you can find and just start researching. Okay, so to answer your question, how do I build out the niches? So that's a great start. Understanding what's important to a niche of people who like astronomy. Or let's do a fun one. I like using this in the bundle masterclass examples. We like people with small dogs, but a small dog breed. So it could be women who own miniature poodles, and they have birthday parties for them and invite all their poodle friends, and they dress them up. Oh, by the way, they also like unicorns and mermaids. So there's a good chance that they're going to dress up their miniature poodle as a mermaid and then take them to a dog show.
I have the best visual in my head right now, by the way.
Thank you very much. And the more you can get inside, now you are that woman. I'm sprinkling fairy dust on you, unicorn dust. You are that person who owns this miniature poodle who's just cute as day, and it's got a little pink or blue bow, depending on the dog's gender, the top of their head, and they're perfectly coiffed. So, of course, that dog owner has all of the high-end, glittery pink, the grooming kit for this dog, and all the cute little bows and things. And, oh, they paint their nails, too. Okay? So they paint the little dog's nails. And then you have to show off your dog, so they get this cute little dog carrier or a dog backpack, even better, right? Or a dog stroller with a cute little poodle blanket over the dog's stroller. And then when that doggy's birthday, 2-year-old birthday come, they have the banners and the balloons, and they send out invitation to their dog friend owners, right, who have little dogs too. And they have this cool party. The ladies bring their dogs, but now the ladies also, they got to drink wine out of a cute little glasses. I love poodles with bling on it, right? And little coaster. And so I have just got a half a dozen bundle, if not more, ideas out of that one freestyle vamp I just did. Can you picture this target market?
Yeah, and what's cool is it's very clear too, because you're stepping basically into that customer's shoes and running with their reality, if you will, right? So it's like, okay, if
movies where people like switch bodies, like 13 going on to 30,
yeah,
I think is one
exactly.
of them. Where you switch into like the mom and the teenage girl switch bodies and they have to live each other's lives. This is kind of what you're doing.
Yeah, it's cool because it kind of grants you a bit of insight that otherwise would be hard to get through traditional means of just asking a bunch of questions and reading a ton of reviews, which I think you should still read reviews because I think it can help. But it's nice to at least get that train of thought moving forward, especially if you're stuck on, let's say, just picking a niche. Okay, well, think through some things that people are interested in, some things that you're interested in, and then dive deeper like you just did into that little ecosystem, whatever you want to call it, that its own little universe. And then it's fairly easy to come up with some of these ideas. It's really cool.
Well, and you just said something interesting. I can tell you're a numbers geek, and I like that
yes.
about you. You went straight back to numbers. Now, I am not on Amazon. I don't have it up on the screen here. I'm not researching anything. I'm just brainstorming. And the big rule of brainstorming is no judgment. So you just go down. I've got a big whiteboard in my office, but you can have a flip chart and just start writing down all these ideas for fanatical niche market. But the next step is what you touched on, validation. So I just laid out, I drew out in your head this great picture of this niche market, which may or may not be viable for me to source wholesale or bundles. So my next step is now to validate it, and that's where the research, the keyword research, and looking at the numbers and looking at the competition comes in. So you can't just look, okay, there's a ton of traffic for people who want under eye cream. But then if you look at the competition, you see it's really going to be a hard market to enter and compete against without throwing a ton of money against it. So just because there's a lot of keyword volume doesn't mean it's niche enough that you can compete in that market with the bundle. So doing the numbers is your validation step after you brainstorm.
I love it. And something I've actually been playing around with, because again, I'm a dork, is basically taking a 20-minute nap for creative thoughts. So roll with me here. This is going to get like super like whatever. So it's a good way to where if you have no distractions, you don't have technology coming in, anything, pulling your attention. If you can relax and get into a nice relaxed state, you can start to have these really interesting train of thoughts where you can get really into the stuff you're talking about, and it makes it really fun. And then what happens is you can end up getting up and be like, that was genius. That was such a good idea. Let's go validate it, right? So there's like these little hacks you can do to get into what's called like a flow state, a creative state, if you will. that can really like, because I know a lot of people get stuck and hung up on that part of like, I just got to think. And, some people I feel, and because I used to do this myself, I would like pre-filter my own thoughts and be like, well, that's probably like I prejudge it, right? But being into a relaxed state, not prejudging your thoughts, just letting it flow, you can find some really cool stuff.
Well, I think it would be fun to put together a guided meditation specifically for brainstorming. I bet they're out there though. So what you're talking about is doing a 20-minute meditation. You call it a nap, but you're not falling
Sure.
asleep.
Right.
Putting yourself in a state where you're engaging your creative brain. So what if we had a guided meditation just for Amazon sellers,
Right.
with the goal of brainstorming niche markets?
That would be a really cool side project, actually.
I know, wouldn't that be fun? And then maybe just have a written transcript of it so people can record it in their own voices. Because when we hear something in our own voice, we learn it faster. It gets in faster because we're programming ourselves in our own voice. That would be a fun thing to do just for giggles.
That would be cool, actually. It's like affirmations almost.
What I do to get into that state that works for me is I do not take my phone with me and I go for a power walk outside.
Walking helps so much with thinking, by the way. So
Yes.
much.
But I've got now I'm totally geeking out. In my dining room, I actually have a treadmill, right? But if I get on the treadmill, I usually have my laptop on it and my iPad, and I'm studying something and I'm watching and I'm listening to. It's not the same as putting all electronics down and leaving the home office because, when you work at home, it's right?
You get
that, what is that called? Cabin fever. But getting out around a different environment with nature and trees and whatever I see, right? And that's a great way to find new ideas just by watching people. I actually think I passed a drug deal this morning.
And she has a new bundle idea.
Just trying to hand money through the window to the guy, and the guy was motioning for him to get in the car. And I laughed when I passed him, and I was going to say something funny, but I was like, no, I better not. But I'm pretty sure I'm going to drug deal.
That's great. Don't use that for a bundle. Nobody use that for a bundle.
Unless it's okay, but I can still go there, Dylan.
Or you can, though.
Okay, I can do a bundle on how to give up an addiction.
True.
Fill in the blank on the addiction. I can create a bunch of bundles on how to get, and they could be gag bundles, they could be fun bundles. How to give up your addiction to small dogs. If we do a mashup with what we said earlier,
that would be funny. Yeah.
How to give up your addiction to unicorns? And
somebody would buy a book. Yeah.
Well, I know that would be a gift bundle to somebody who's crazy about unicorns, but their family is sick and tired of hearing them talk about unicorns.
Yep.
So they give them a gift bundle on how to give up unicorns. Okay, so all that because I took a walk this morning before this podcast and witnessed a potential drug deal going down.
That's great. And now you have a new bundle idea.
Ideas are everywhere, guys. The reason I'm telling you this is to illustrate that they're everywhere. Just open your eyes and don't judge and don't overthink when you're brainstorming. So there are different ways to do it, whether it's getting in a guided meditation state or exercising and getting your blood flowing and just, getting outside of your regular environment. Tony Robbins calls it a state change, a physical state change. So sometimes that jostles me free when I'm stuck on something. I do a state change.
I like it. Yeah, I've been playing with those too, like cold shower randomly. A few breathing, like the Wim Hof breathing method. If you want to talk about getting awake really quick without Red Bull, that helps tremendously. Can't do it in front of other people because you're breathing really loud. It's really awkward, but it works really well.
Especially not in like a room of women or something.
Right. Yeah. It's like, I can't, I have to go to a closet to breathe. I'll be right back. And I will be more energized when I do so. Context matters. Cool. So what's the next step in this whole thing? So we've gotten to validation, right?
Yeah, you've got it. And the way, now we get into the numbers. And I'm kind of a numbers geek too. There are a couple tools I use, and there are a lot of tools out there. As an Amazon seller, I go straight to merchantwords.com and just start. And merchantwords is going to feed up to you the search volume, the approximate search volume for a keyword term that you type into on Amazon.com and also on different countries' marketplaces. But for the purpose of this podcast, we'll just focus on .com US. But it will also feed up keyword suggestions. So if you type in poodle birthday, it will come up with other keywords, long tail keywords, which is our multi-word keywords that people are searching for in that market. So it could be you put in poodle birthday, and it tells you that there's 5,000 people a month searching on female 2-year-old poodle birthday party, that long tail keyword. So you can focus on adding those long tail keywords to the back end and to the description and listing, et cetera, of your Amazon listing. And sometimes it'll come up with something completely random, like poodle insomnia, right? It'll show me that there's 10,000 people a month searching on my poodle has insomnia. Who'd have thunk? I'm not saying that that's the case. I'm just saying off the top of my head. When I do these validation keyword searches, I find some funky, cool niche market ideas from doing that. And then the other validation, I also use keyword.io. Now that's a paid tool, but it's useful to me because I also sell on other platforms. So it gives me a ton of research. And what tools do you use for keyword validation? There's Scope,
So I've mainly, just because I haven't gone the keyword research route, the only keyword research that I've really done is for like PPC, right? So using like Keyword Inspector, although that's starting to change because there's some issues, but it's mainly going that route. Because I was thinking as you're talking about keywords, I was going to ask, are you also using those keywords? Because I could imagine, at least from what I understand with bundling, you can typically get a better price point, right? So you end up having more margin, so it's a competitive advantage there as well. But it would free up more margin to run PPC campaigns to your bundles. So I would imagine the keywords you're finding, you can also begin testing with PPC.
Yeah, now we're getting into perceived values, and I will touch on that in just a second. Let me go back to, you guys all know that when you go to Amazon or Google and you type in poodle birthday, for example, go try it, you'll get a drop down. And those are the search terms in order of importance that people are searching, in order of volume, that people are actually searching for on Amazon and on Google. So go just try predictive search and put poodle and see what drops down. And then just dig, 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 dig. Okay, so perceived value. I'm just marking that off my list here because I want to make sure. Oh, wait, before I go on to perceived value, I want to talk about another validation that you absolutely must do. So let's say you think you've got this really great niche market. You've done a bunch of research on the target person who will be buying a potential bundle in that market. What problems do they have? What passions do they want to feed? Then you do keyword research to make sure people are actually searching for this. But then the third level is you have to do competitive research. Now, by competitor, I don't mean people who are selling a bundle in that market. I'm talking about any sellers who are bringing a product to that same niche market, which in this case, let's just say it's women who own little poodles, little female poodles, okay? So you want to know what other products are being sold to this market. And basically that's Amazon. Go on Amazon, type in that main keyword tool, keyword search, and see what products come up. Because you can get ideas for, oh, wow, there are these blingy, cute little collars with little rhinestones on them and little princess tiaras for your poodle. And again, that's off the top of my head. I didn't actually search for that, but that might come up. But that tells you who is ranking for the keywords, what products are ranking for the keywords that in the market that you're going to go after. So you can see what products you need to beat with the bundle. And by beat, I'm meaning perceived value. So if somebody is searching for a birthday party for female poodle, and there are a bunch of listings coming up for single items, if you can create a bundle that provides a solution so they only have to buy one item, yours, not 8 different items from 8 different sellers, and scroll, and you put all of those things together, and then you lock it down. Here's the other key. You lock it down to make your bundle competition proof by creating an added value piece that nobody else can create, or it takes a lot of effort for them to create. And most sellers, hopefully none of your viewers, your listeners are in this camp. Most sellers are lazy. We call them lazy sellers. So the harder they have to work to do something, the less likely they are to do it, which means when you take that little extra step, I didn't coin this phrase, but there's a phrase that I've got up on my office wall. The difference between ordinary and extraordinary is that little extra. So when you do that little extra and you lock down your bundle with a custom piece that you create, it could be an advertising promotion product that you put an image on, or a logo, or a cute saying. It could be something that you print up at Vistaprint, like the bundle that I did for that gun owner market. I did this little postcard that was 4x6, and I put tips, 12 tips for gun owners on one side, and the other side I had like a little article on, hey, here's the best way care for blah, 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 blah. And I just printed it up with Vistaprint and put it in. All right. And I made a cute little logo for it with like a bullseye on it. So that locked down that bundle. And that bundle, by the way, only had 2 pieces in it plus that custom piece. So you want to validate the keywords, validate the competition, and then and then lock down your bundle with a value added piece that nobody can, it would be hard for them to duplicate. Make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. That's pretty good. I'm just like thinking through this because there's.
Yeah, I can see your little. I can see you during the podcast. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, my mind's racing.
See, like you can hear your gears going about bundling and how to use bundles as a way to set yourself apart from everybody else who's selling the same individual product, whether it's private label sellers or wholesale sourcers. It gives you the edge for negotiating with suppliers, and it gives you the edge for meeting a target market by serving up a solution to a problem or feeding a passion. That's it in a nutshell. I make it sound easy. There's a lot of nuances to it.
I can see there's a lot of mechanics to it, but conceptually it makes a lot of sense. I think my perception of bundling previously was pretty simplistic, and I think that's why I undervalued it so much. And now seeing it from this perspective, it changes a lot because there's more to there. I said this at the beginning of the episode where anytime there's added value to either a customer or a supplier, I'm on board because that's a competitive edge. And you mentioned most sellers are lazy, and that's very much the realities of this business, which, we have people saying, well, why are you teaching what you do? It's like, well, are we creating more competitors for ourselves? Maybe, maybe not. The majority of sellers that come in and really hustle and really do things differently, and listen to our podcast and fully implement it isn't 100%. We wish it were. But yeah, it's cool how you approach it because it's very, I like the creative side because I enjoy that as well, on top of the numbers. But I could see somebody, let's say they're just doing wholesale, they haven't started with bundling yet. You could, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you could go to your current inventory and start looking for ideas within the niches you already have, right? So if you're already carrying product, start looking for bundles you can use with the current ones, right? So now not only can you be selling your inventory on the single listings you're doing now, but you can branch out into bundles and immediately increase the volume of sales for the inventory you already have. That's where things get really cool.
A couple of thoughts came to mind when you were saying that. First, this allows you to buy a higher volume from your supplier, which leads to negotiating better prices.
Exactly.
So let's say you create 2 bundles using, you're selling a product from a supplier and use that main product to create 2 separate bundles. You've now tripled potentially the quantity that you're buying, which gets you better prices when you negotiate it. The second thing is when you can get rid of, let's say you've got product that didn't sell. For whatever reason, a bunch of sellers came on or a bunch of private label guys came on and there's too much competition and you had to pull that back and it's sitting there. I know a lot of people on this podcast are visualizing the pile of stuff they had to pull back from Amazon. So today I would encourage you, after listening to this podcast, to go revisit that stuff and ask yourself this question. Pick one product and say, okay, what niche market does this product serve? And let me understand what that niche market is and what else they need. And then build a bundle around that product to serve that market. And then put up a couple of bundles, test out a dozen of them using that product to see how it goes. So it's a good way to get rid of product. And then another thought that came to my mind when you were speaking is doing a pattern interrupt. I'm sure you know what that is, doing a pattern interrupt in conversation or in marketing. So when you approach a new wholesale supplier, potential brand owner, everybody and his uncle is going to be sending the same message in their first email. We'd like to carry your product. And they're anticipating that the answer they get back is, are you an Amazon seller? And then the potential no. But if you do a pattern interrupt and you send a message and your messaging and communication with your suppliers is different from everybody else, they're going to read that email and say, wait, what? Bundles? What does he mean by bundles? And you've kind of, stopped their brain from already answering, oh, we don't take Amazon sellers, to asking a question that they want you to answer. Well, hang on, what is a bundle and how can it help me? Right, so you want to do that pattern interrupt. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, and I wanted to give you guys an actual example of a product. Now, it was a wholesale liquidation. So I bought out everything they had. it was puppets. And this is a great example of creating an experience for the buyer. So we bought hand puppets, and there were 6 different animals in this hand puppet bundle. And then we also cross-market it, by the way, to golf club owners, believe it or not, because they fit. I went to the Goodwill and I bought a big, I don't know anything about golf, but a big wood golf club thingy and a little skinny metal golf club thingy, whatever they're called. And I tested to see if the puppets went on top, and we created a golf club cover bundle for golfers using the same product. But the bundle that we created with the puppets was the bundle, the 6 puppets with an adoption certificate that we had printed out on this really cute paper that had gold edging and little gold award sticker. But the certificate said, hi, my name is, and then a blank for the child to put their name in. And I am the proud caretaker of these 6 animals, and here are their names. And it listed cow, dog. Hi, my name is so-and-so, the cow. And we left a line for the child to fill in the names of the puppets as well. So now they're naming the puppets, so there's this personal connection. Then we included a story time book I had created off of Fiverr. I hired a guy who created this book incorporating these 5 different animals into a storybook that the mom, dad, aunt, grandmother can read to the child while acting out with the puppets. But then the packaging, here's our another custom piece. The packaging we created, on the outside, we printed it like a cage carry box. Like if you went to adopt a kitten and they give you a box, but they have holes in the box. Well, we printed black holes all over the box to make it look like an adoption box. And then on the inside, you could fold the box inside out. We printed a stage. So the kid could act out on the stage with their puppets, right, in front of this little stage, the story that was being told. So we created this experience. Instead of just selling puppets, we created an experience that we could now market to. Think about what the niche markets for this would be. How about kids who have communication problems? Therapists who need to get kids to open up. So it's not just a story time thing, but it got me to sub niches. Once I started asking, what problem does this bundle solve? Like what other ways can people use this bundle? So that's an actual bundle I did. And then we ran out, of course, and it was a liquidation, so I couldn't get the bundle.
Then you're like, wait, we need more. That's great. Yeah, that's cool. Because yeah, like you said, you turn it from a product to an experience, and to do that, you had to put thought into the product. And I think that's a big, going back to, the majority of sellers being lazy, which again, I completely agree with. It doesn't take a lot of effort to put thought into something, in my opinion. I don't think it does. And all the stuff we talked about so far went into that process, right? You started asking the right questions and forming this together, and you're able to turn something that other sellers might have looked at and said, yeah, I can't move that. There's no listing. There's nothing here for it. But you created that demand, or at least you validated it and then created an experience, a bundle that made sense for that audience. I know this can feel like a lot to somebody listening. I know it's got me in a whirlwind because I'm trying to think through this whole thing, and my gears are turning, which is always a fun time for me. That's like my flow zone. Well,
we bounced around a little bit, but I actually do have a 6-step approach. And, I touched on all 6 steps in this conversation. We just bounced around, but I have a very, I like systems as much as you do. I have a 6-step approach that I laid out, and we follow it religiously for any bundle I put together.
Awesome. And you actually put together a guide for our listeners. That way they can jump in if they want to have a more concise version of this, something that's really kind of more boiled down. Can you share what that is? Because I know we kind of put something together.
The clip notes. That way you guys don't have to, if you didn't take notes during this podcast, no worries. Basically the clip notes, it's my 6-step guide. And you can go to bundlemasterclass.com/Vendrive, of course, Vendrive. So it's bundlemasterclass.com/Vendrive. And you can download the free bundling guide. And like I said, it's my 6-step approach, just kind of in a little synopsis for you, clip notes that you can get started as a reminder of what we talked about during the podcast and get started with bundling.
I love it. Even with, college classes, I try to boil everything down to a single page because I'm that person.
Well, I like that
And
you said before we started recording, you said it was something you're doing with your business that you started with like 27 steps and you got it down to 3.
oh, I love
Like,
it.
oh
Yeah.
my, that's impressive. That is really impressive.
Yeah, and that's where we really geek out. I'm glad that you geek out with systems too, because when you view everything from a systems, from a framework standpoint, they become more clear. They become simpler. And I keep saying all the time, Amazon is simple, not easy. It's a very simple, easy thing. I mean, to show the flow of products, to show how things work, can be done on an index card. But you still have to do the work. You still have to put thought in. You still have to be creative. You still have to be adaptive and flexible. You still have to do the work at the end of the day. So, Barbara, thank you so much for breaking down how you approach bundling, because I now have a new respect for bundles. And now I'm like, this is a huge competitive advantage for people. I mean, it really is. And hopefully, everybody listening understands that and sees that value and will start doing it. Like, grab that free guide, because that's a competitive advantage right there. For people who want to reach out to you and get connected with you, where should they go? How do they get connected to you?
They can, I've got a group on Facebook. You can ask anything about bundling, and it's Bundle Secrets. Just look up Bundle Secrets. My name is Barbara Drazga. You can find me on Facebook, reach out, message me. I'm really accessible and happy to help you guys out and answer questions. And again, bundlemasterclass.com/Vendrive. You can grab that free guide, and it's a bunch of resources in there.
Awesome, Barbara. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on.
Before we leave, I have a huge ask. If you enjoyed this podcast and you got value from it, leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. The way we're able to have more impact on more sellers is by getting in front of them. We can do that by having more reviews and getting pushed to the top of iTunes podcasts. So leave us a review and let us know what you think of the podcast.